Oh, hey everyone. This is Dean for Paranormal Pickers. Just getting ready for our next Paranormal Picker adventure. Come on, join me. You might not see it on Facebook right away, but here we are live on Facebook somewhere. This is it, folks. All right. Yep, it's live now, so there we go.
Oh, look at that. Live. Oh, you have documentation. Look at that.
Yes, I pull up Facebook so I could see the comments on here.
Gotcha.
So
Gotcha. I
we'll
didn't
see.
realize that you wouldn't be able to see them like beside you, like
You
private chat or something.
you can in a sense, but sometimes it comes up as Facebook user because
Oh, okay.
you gotta give permission to uh, allow yourself to be on TV or Facebook,
Okay.
I should say, not TV.
That makes sense. Yeah.
All right, let me see here.
Please, please, no autographs. Right. I get it. I get it. All
Yeah.
right. Uh,
So people are just watching us, just give it, talking away. Hello,
well,
everyone.
well, you've got
Welcome
a.
to. Go ahead.
Oh, I was going to say, like, I've checked you out, not in a weird, perverse way, but still. So you have some really devoted followers, and I've enjoyed just checking you and Nick out. And I'm sorry that Nick isn't able to be with us today, but
Yep, he's got the vid, I guess. His family does, and he seems to be okay. He's got to be there for his family. So,
absolutely, absolutely.
and I got a cough that's been around since 2005, so it's called secondhand smoke cough. It is
Oh,
what it is.
it is what it is.
So I just put the banner up. Hello, everyone. Welcome to season 2, episode 14, the Temperance card. We have tonight as a guest Sarah Jane from Bangor, Maine. Hey.
Maine. Hello. It's so nice to be here.
Yeah. So
Thanks
we'll
for
see
having
who
me on.
pops on and asks questions, and
Okay.
we'll kind of go in. And I think Victoria's on.
Like like the Victoria.
That's right. There she goes. It's
Oh, there she
Victoria,
is. Hey,
Facebook user.
Victoria. I have to tell you, she is one of my favorite souls in the whole wide world, and I'm not just saying that. Like,
She is. She warmed our hearts. Season 2 episode. I don't remember when we were doing the animal sounds, and
the animal sounds.
yeah, she's. You fall in love with her quickly. Laura, who's part of our team, says she needs to be on the show all the damn time.
You're not wrong. Laura is not wrong.
Right?
Victoria is an asset to any program. So if you can nab
Oh yeah,
her, that's wonderful. I
definitely.
actually was first introduced to her by a podcast that her and
Oh,
another friend of ours used to facilitate. And I just loved going on just to watch Victoria because she always came prepared. She had some great insight and she had some great questions. And not that the other hosts didn't, but Victoria just has this wonderful energy about her that
she
if
could steal the show. Yes.
she really can. She really can. And she could steal the show and you wouldn't hate her for it. You're like, it makes sense.
How
Yeah,
can you
we're gonna
hate
just
Victoria? Yeah.
right. Like I'm just going to turn everything over to her. Like absolutely, absolutely. I think the world of her, and I cannot
Hey,
praise her enough.
she played the banjo for us. Come on, that was awesome. Yeah,
No
right.
way.
Yeah, because America for paranormal picker, she thinks it's a picker, like you pick a guitar string.
Like wow. Like she's setting the bar high. Like
Yeah, you can't top it. Yeah,
oh, let me find my tin whistle and I'll.
I did mouth harp. Doing, doing, doing,
Dun,
doing.
dun, dun.
Well, the people that don't know you, could you give a little
Sure.
introduction to yourself?
Sure. So Hi, I'm Sarah Jane. I was born and raised in Maine. I currently live in the lovely town of Bucksport, Maine. And if you're not familiar with Bucksport, that's totally okay. We're right on the coast. And if you're fans of Dark Shadows, Bucksport is one of the handful of towns that like to say that we inspired Dark Shadows. So that's kind of neat. I'm about 20 minutes from Stephen King's home in Bangor, Maine, which is quite cool. And it's been neat to be living in an area where there's so much paranormal activity, so much historical activity. And Bucksport has been known as one of the hot spots in New England. We have a lot of very interesting legends and lores, and I love it. And when I was a child, are you familiar with why can I not think of it right now? Pig. What was that?
Charlotte's Web.
Charlotte's Web. So Charlotte's Web, E.B. White lived in Maine, and he lived actually about 30 minutes from here. Which is very neat. And he wrote a lot about the coast of Maine. And why do I say that? I say that because Maine's coast has been such beautiful to be at and to observe and to experience, but there's been so many stories and songs written about it that I just love it. So when I was a child, I grew up in Charlotte's Web area. So the fair where Charlotte gets the pig, Wilbur, is actually the local town fair that we have every September. And that's what it was dedicated to. And actually, our librarian, this is so random, our librarian in town was the inspiration for Charlotte. She was in her 70s, but growing up, her father was best friends with E.B. White.
Isn't there something there where it says it's like based off of like a communist type of thing, Charlotte's Web?
I think that might be. Are you thinking? Are you thinking of Animal Farm?
Animal Farm, that's what it was. Yes,
right.
Animal Farm.
Oh my gosh, poor E.B. White's rolling in his grave going, what the hell is this?
Animal Farm, yes. Sorry, Charlotte.
Yep. Sorry about that, Wilbur.
The pig and the pig and the spider, sorry.
And I always wanted to live in Bucksport because Bucksport has such a rich ghost history.
And there you go.
You bet. It was originally founded in 1792, and it's named after a Colonel Jonathan Buck. And Jonathan Buck was this very strong-headed Puritan who despised anything that did not quite follow his faith. Mm-hmm. And so he was known for hunting down witches throughout New England. And once he made his home in Maine, he really focused on, I'm going to be biased and say independent, strong women. And so there's a legend where he had found this woman, charged her and convicted her, because of course he was also the judge, of witchcraft. And he went to sentence her to death. And on her moments before she died, she cursed him. And so if you go to Bucksport, Maine, our website, it talks about the curse of Jonathan Buck. And so when she died, and soon after, Jonathan Buck died, and his family soon afterwards died. And on Jonathan Buck's grave, there is a leg and foot that like appears. And it sounds really odd, but they've replaced
not at all.
and the image continues to appear. There's been a little bit of change with the lore, saying that she actually had a child, and that Jonathan Buck had set this woman on fire, and as she was burning, parts of her started falling off, and that her young son, so grieved about his mother, started collecting parts of her that was falling off, and that had part of her leg. So if you, again, that's part of our heritage, is that we talk about Jonathan Buck and the leg and the foot and the curse of the witch. And it's pretty big. I'm kind of surprised how big of a deal it is, actually. But when I was a child, I was totally enthralled with this. Like, oh, right, this is like speaking my language. And yeah. So Bucksport has a lot of very interesting history.
Jonathan Buck curse. I will have to look that up. We got a couple of comments on here. Victoria says, "Oh my God, Frank and Mommy." She talks about Toby. Yeah, here we go.
Toby.
Yeah, the cat, the famous cat. That's it. Toby and I are going to visit Sarah J next summer. There you go.
Yes,
there you go. It's in writing.
I hope you do. I truly do. And bring Toby, absolutely, of course. I love having people over, and I love introducing people to the wonders of the coast of Maine, because if you haven't experienced it, is definitely different than any.
I haven't been out there. I'm surprised. I've been to Cape Cod, and that was several years ago. It was the year when Janet Jackson and Justin Timberlake did the Super Bowl.
That's how you're able to. That's your timeline. I like.
Well, I was helping a friend.
It was before the boob exposure or after the.
Yeah, exactly. But it was a 3-day. I had 3 days to take a boat out there for a friend who sold it online.
Oh,
so I drove it from Illinois or Wisconsin, actually, to Cape Cod. And the Thursday that I was leaving, and you might remember this, I woke up and I saw the news report that the canal or whatever froze over, and there was a ship that got frozen in there. And it was like on the side, and they were walking the people off the frozen thing. And this is when that big snowstorm was happening out there. And I go, I got to drive into that with a boat. So I'm like, we get to Dunkirk, New York, stop at Applebee's. We have to shovel ourselves out of the parking lot.
No way.
For the time that we were there. And then I'm getting on a tollway heading east. So it was hilarious because the guy in the tow booth, he looks up, looks down, and looks up again. And I pull up there. I roll down my window. I said, "Don't even say a word." And he starts laughing. He goes,
"Let me go."
I was wondering. I go, "I know how to doing 35." And then all these truckers, man, they were doing like 70. And I couldn't see in front of me. I don't know how they could see. Maybe the snow wasn't as thick up there.
There's a lot of truth to that. And if you're in the front, there's not much of an issue. When you're behind them, that's the issue, right? But the way you're describing, I'm like picturing you like shoveling out of Applebee's, and all I'm thinking in my mind is, if that's not like a really messed up version of The Shining, you know?
Well, I'll tell you that too. There's a story there too. But when it cleared up, when the snow started clearing up, we were able to see the trucks in the ditch, off the viaduct, everything out. So yeah, their visibility was not the greatest, but they thought they were. And so yeah, we get to Cape Cod, transfer the boat over. So I get the boat off the hitch, and I'm like, let's go. And I have to go all the way back home. And that was Sunday, the day of the Super Bowl.
Wow.
With Janet Jackson stuff. So yeah, that's the best that I have out there. So yeah, I got to get back out there and spend more time, apparently.
I think you do. And you got to check out more. I love geology, and you know, because I want to make the horrible pun that geology rocks, but it does. I enjoy geology. And one of the things I've enjoyed about learning about the Maine coast is that at one time we were connected to Ireland. And so I've had the wonderful chance to go out to Ireland multiple times.
Speaking of which, Victoria
Yeah.
says, ask Sarah Jane about Ireland.
Ireland was wonderful. But to kind of finish the original thought that the country stone matches what I have in my backyard, and so much of the flowers and the trees match my backyard. And
Okay.
so to see that, it was really kind of neat that I traveled 7 hours to be in this beautiful place with wonderful individuals with great accents. Great accents.
Can you pull one off?
Oh gosh. I have to think hard about that, but sometimes I can. Sometimes I can. Nope, not at the moment because you got me on the spot. But I try. But they're such great times and such great people. But yeah, Ireland was great. We went back. A group of us went back. Actually, Victoria was originally scheduled to go. She didn't, so sad face. But her co-host Mike did, and
okay.
yeah, we had a really good time in Ireland. We got to check out all sorts of amazing castles and what's known as fairy circles, the stone circles that surround. And the energy in that was just amazing. When we went, it was soon after the summer solstice.
Wow.
Literally within days after the summer solstice. And the fairy circles were amazing because you had so many people, pagans and other like-minded folks who had left offerings at these circles. So you go to these very quiet kind of, kind of energy. And people have left these beautiful multicolored bags and offerings. And to me, that in a way is true time travel. Like you get to see like what people originally meant these sites for, and feel that energy that's connected to it, and it's pretty neat.
And what are some of the oldest things out there? Like how the date of some of the structures you were seeing?
Oh my gosh, I apologize because I didn't write down all the dates, but we were in places that were, well, one of the largest fairy circles. It's definitely probably, we're talking over 3,000, 4,000 years old.
Okay.
And it was so incredibly old and so beautifully massive that these gorgeous trees were had grown into these massive pieces of stone. And so you see all that and you're just like, that's amazing to think at one time somebody was praying or providing offerings and there was a little teeny tiny sprig, right, of a tree. And now it's absolutely huge. It's so big that it has split the rock, you know. And it's humbling, I guess. For me, it's humbling to think that whenever I'm having a bad day and I'm just like, gosh, man, life sucks, or I just think about that time goes on and beautiful things continue to grow and inspire despite that. It's
So now I have FOMO, fear of missing out. So now I'm stuck here in Illinois and I want to be there.
I will set you up, my friend. I will set you up.
If you can blink and get me there, cool. It's a 7-hour drive or 7-hour flight. Yeah, I don't know.
Well, from Boston, it's a 7-hour flight. So good luck. But come to Maine, and then we'll figure it out. But,
right.
Yeah.
Well, I did find something regarding Maine. Back to Maine here, and it said, let's see, research from Porch and Ghosts of America say that Maine is the ghostliest state of America.
Not gonna lie.
North Dakota was the next highest with 53 sightings per capita.
Oh.
So, so you're in competition with North Dakota.
Well, they're going down, Dean. I'm like,
and
that is
and New York,
fascinating.
yeah, New York and Florida were the least ghostly states. And it says, according to the study, 58 out of every 100,000 Mainers claim to have seen a ghost.
It's true.
58 out
Wow.
of 100,000. It seems kind of low, don't it?
Well, my house is over 200 years old, and I love this home. I purchased it 9 years ago, knowing
Oh, nice.
how old it was, and it needed a lot of work. And I'm sorry because I'm probably going to get a little emotional. This house is just amazing, and I can see the water. I can the boats come into the harbor, and I see it. It's just
Wow.
absolutely. I feel very lucky and very blessed. It's a 3-story house, and the third story was really badly damaged with water damage. And but when I walked in, and it was a very rainy spring day, and the realtor was showing me around, you could hear children. You could hear the
Oh,
children playing. You could hear the pitter pat upstairs. And it just had this overall warm feel of a generational home, you know.
wow.
So as a single mom of 2, I was like, you know what, I'll take it. And so the house has been very active. I consider myself lucky. I was able to find a wonderful woman in the area who, when I say area in Maine, that usually means they live within 2-hour drive, you know, so that's an
Hmm.
area, that's local.
In the air.
Um, but I met this really lovely lady who does genealogy on people's properties. You know, she'll go back and do the history. And so
I do
that's
that.
why, yeah, right?
Hmm.
How cool is that? So I feel very confident when I say my house is over 200 years old, is because this wonderful woman did the history for me.
Right.
And and to know the history and know again that this house was built when the state of Maine didn't exist and we were part of Massachusetts is really neat. But it's also, she was able to tell me the history of the people who lived here and their children, um, and the deed that got passed on. So my home is very active with children, but also some of the former owners. And so, so what I wanted to share with you and some of your viewers is that the children are really active here. And oftentimes we can see them from the corner of our eye. They're sweet. Um, and they really are. I know some people are, as soon as I start talking about children and spirits, they're like, oh, that scares the crap out of me, and they start thinking about some Hollywood movie, or they
Right.
start thinking about black-eyed children, which, I mean, Dean, between you and me and the rest of the world, if a black-eyed child showed up in my house, I'm gone and I'm burning this thing to the ground, like,
Right.
no, right? um,
Exactly.
but again, children are, you hear them, you can hear them giggling, you hear them walking up and down the steps. And when I'm watching television, I can see them through the corner of my eye, that they're kind of peeking around the corner, you
Oh,
know.
cool.
And so I think maybe I'd been here for about a year, maybe a year and a half, and I wasn't feeling so great, and I went to take a nap. And I'm probably going to share way too much information that you don't want to know, but I look
Sure.
so adorable when I sleep. I've got earplugs in, I have a pillow over my head, I've got my mouth open. And if that doesn't scream sexy, I don't know what does, right? So here I am looking sexy. And I wake up just a little bit and I open up my eyes, and I will, my hand to my higher power. There was the cutest little dark haired boy with
Oh,
brown
wow.
eyes watching me, but he like had his hands just like this, and he was like watching me, fascinated. And so I'm and so I went, and so he's there and he goes, and he disappeared right then
Oh,
and
wow.
there. Right. So when I say that my house is active with people, that's, they're like, okay, sure it is. But this little boy and I have actually bonded that he leaves me gifts. And one of the first gifts he gave me was a marble. And I wasn't sure if it was him because there's also a
Interesting.
little girl named Dorothy. How do we know her name is Dorothy? Because when we pulled back all the wallpaper to expose the horsehair plaster, there in purple crayon, a little girl had written
Nice.
her name Dorothy. And
You
that's
can't ask for a better treasure than that. That's cool.
right. That is like so neat. So there's a little
Wow.
girl and she does run around and you can see her sometimes and she's kind of mischievous. But the little boy, he leaves me gifts. And the first gift he gave me was a marble in the middle of a room that I was renovating. And yeah, I came back and there was this cute little marble right in the middle of the floor. My children do not own marbles. I've never owned a marble, so it was fascinating. Um,
Wow.
but a year later, I went to work on the third floor with all the water damage. And I went into the restroom, went into the bathroom, used the bathroom, washed my hands, of course, right? And when I stepped out, this particular book, which I don't know if you can see,
Yep. The
but
ghost named Fred.
a ghost named Fred, and it was right in front of the door on the floor,
What?
right? And
That's
so
awesome.
isn't that neat? And I'm like, a ghost named Fred. This is not my children's book. It's actually a library book that was taken out in 1999 in a town that I've never been in Maine. So
Wow.
it's crazy. It really is. It's crazy. And so um, at that time, I went, okay, well, I guess we'll see how it goes. And within 2 hours, I'm upstairs on the third floor tearing down horsehair plaster when I come across a ton of newspapers and drawings, beautiful, cute little children's drawings, all signed by Alfred.
I was gonna say, was the boy's name Fred?
It's Alfred. So
That's
Alfred
crazy.
Alfred gives me little gifts here and there. And anytime you want to talk in the future, I'll be happy to show you. He gives me toys.
Did you
That,
frame the
yeah.
pictures that he drew and maybe make a
Um,
little
I do have one framed because he actually did a
nice,
Halloween one, which is
nice?
so cute when you think about it.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's just, I love it. It feels like a time capsule. And every time I discover something new and interesting, and
I
that's
love
cool.
the innocence of that. That's so neat. And Victoria does ask here, are they children because they died young or did they just appear as children? So is Alfred
That's a good
so she,
question.
yeah.
Alfred himself does not appear in any of my historical paperwork. Dorothy does. Her parents owned the house, but the third floor was for servants, and so I think Alfred was a
Oh,
child of one of the servants, and we know that children died very young here too.
okay.
One of the maybe creepy parts of this town or where I live is that the first cemetery is three
I,
houses at the top of the hill. And so the majority of the owners who've the majority of the former owners of this home are buried up there, including their children. And they've had a lot of young children who died, who didn't live to
okay.
the age of 10. So I think Dorothy passed young, and I get the feeling that Alfred passed young. And Alfred, you hear him often, and he's asking for mom. He's looking for mom quite a bit.
Oh,
Yeah, so that's heartbreaking. But
Yeah, that's the worst when you hear a ghost or a spirit say,
mm,
when they're lost, and that's
yeah,
heartbreaking.
yeah. So I know
And
at one point where I was telling you that I'm a psychotherapist, and I am, and I enjoy providing therapy. I've always found psychology fascinating. So when
sure,
I think
yeah,
about the paranormal and therapy, oftentimes people start making the connection with people who see ghosts or believe in ghosts and what is their mental health like. Um, and I agree, that's fascinating. That's one of the reasons why
yeah, right.
I chat with people and be like, so how do you distinguish what's a sighting and what's not a med increase? Like what's going on? Um, but what I really find interesting is whether I'm watching the shows or chatting with people who go on investigations, is that they're often going into places where there's been some sort of trauma. There's been a
Right.
death, a suicide, something. And um, for me, I can't help but wonder if that spirit is not in a perpetual traumatic loop over and over again, right?
Hmm.
And so the therapist in me really would love to be able to give them some sort of closure or process that. But when I think about the children in my house, anyway, and you have Alfred who's always looking for his mom, and that attachment and that fear of not knowing where mom is, um, how as an adult do you not feel compassion, for that little one, regardless of whether that little one is alive or has passed on. um, but then again, I got to tell you that I've got the same mind frame when I watch shows, and there's some individuals that will like kind of, I don't want to say like poke the bear, but they start
they
talking about
poke,
like they're poking the bear,
they're poking the bear pretty
and
much. Yeah.
right, and I'm sitting there eating my popcorn, watching, in my home, going, you know what, dude? If you came into my home and started talking about my man cheating on me, and I took my life, like, I. I'd probably be pretty upset with you too. And so I
Yeah.
always find like that type of I don't want to say behavior, but some of those tactics where they're just kind of poking the bear, and
Yeah.
then the bear pokes back, and then they're like, "Ooh, whoa."
Yeah.
No one wants to talk about their trauma, and I don't know. I find it funny. Funny in a very dark humor way. Like it's
You're
fun,
right.
you know. Just like, yeah, go
Well, you
ahead.
you live near Stephen King, so of course you got to think that way too.
I really do. I really
Yeah.
do. I know. Um, I guess that's just I think maybe Stephen King has his sense of humor because that's how Mainers
Oh
are.
yeah.
That we
He
all
has a
have a little
very
sense of
strange
humor.
sense of humor, from what I
Yes, we
to say the
do.
least. Um, with
Yeah.
the with what you were saying about the spirits, that part of that research that I was telling you, they suggest that the ghosts avoid densely populated places and prefer small towns. And then it continues saying like houses, schools, and military bases were among the most common locations for sightings. So that's interested. It's interesting that ghosts are pretty much introverted. Like they want to
Yeah.
stay away from population. It's just like, well, I don't want to deal with people anymore. And then, like you're saying,
Yeah.
then you got the guy that comes in, and or girl for that matter, and say
Yeah.
start poking
Pokes,
the
pokes. Right.
poking the bear. And I know one of our guys, Mark. His favorite question is, "Do you know that you're dead?" It's well, yeah. I
Right.
kind of gotta try to get away from you guys, but you found me anyway. It's
Right. Exactly. Do you know that you're dead? It's like, no, it took until now for you to point that out. Thank you so much.
So I'm wondering, is there any or extroverted ghosts out there? I'm curious. I'm sure there are.
That I wonder if those are the ones that are more active. I love the thought about introverted and extroverted because not only do we tend to talk about the traits, like the really public traits that we know, the people who are really talkative and social. But really, the part that I find fascinating is that you can have somebody who's social, who's an introvert, and that it really is how they process, how they process things in life and how they recharge, right?
Yeah.
And so people who are extroverted, if there's something on their mind, they tend to talk to other people. And it's not that they need that person there, they just need a sounding board, and it helps them process all of that stuff inside. And when it comes to recharging, when they're out in a mall, if there are those things anymore, it seems like they're going away quickly. But if they're out in public, a game or something, that just being around the energy of others recharges their personal energy. Where you have somebody who's introverted, right, that processes things best on their own and recharges by taking some alone time to isolate. And I find that fascinating. So
most of our people on our team are introverts. Just so that's, and then I actually bought them stickers that says, yes, I'm introverted. I'm introverted, but if you want to talk about ghost hunting, I could talk all day long.
Right? Exactly. Yeah. What do they feel passionate about? Absolutely. So I'd imagine that spirits would be very similar, wouldn't you think? I went to I can't even remember now, but anyway, it was near Lizzie Borden's home in Massachusetts, and the gentleman who was speaking, he was talking about, like, if Lizzie Borden was alive, or if we were her, don't you think you'd get tired after a while of people coming in multiple times a day asking you if you killed them? Like, are you there, Lizzie? Did you kill them?
Yeah.
Why did you kill them? He goes, after a while, wouldn't that just bug the crap out of you? And would there be a part of you that just wanted to mess with them?
Or try to kill them.
Right? You're like, and I was just like, that really helped in a way to kind of put a different spin, that we are meeting these individuals, spirit or not, on their terms and in their domain, in a way, right? This is their home, this is their place. And being asked the same questions over and over again, all I could think about is when my children were like 2 or 3 years old, going through the mama, 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 mama. Oh, mommy. Oh, mother. Why? It's like,
yeah.
Right? And then as soon as we're like, what? They're like, why are you mad at me?
And then when they get older, it's can I?
That's right. And you're just like, oh, right? So sometimes I can't help but wonder just how much some of our questions, like, how do they land? Because we're not the first people to ask, right? We're not the first individuals to ask some of these questions. And are they landing on, I don't want to say like fresh area where people can be like, oh, that's a great question. Let me think about that. Or is it another question about whether I hacked them to death? Oh, good God. Like, leave me alone.
Exactly.
Yeah. I think about a lot of those things. And when it comes to kids, I can't help but wonder, like, this is going to sound totally random, but please go with me on this. I think about the investigations, and I've been parts of these, where we know that there's children and we want to interact with those kids, and we leave a doll, or we leave a ball, or we leave something, right? And we hope
like a trigger,
exactly, right, a trigger object, and we're hoping that the child will do something with it, right? Now, think about that, being 6 years old, being alone, and somebody comes and offers you a toy, and as soon as you touch it, they're excited, and then they ignore you, right? They're like, they don't push it back. It's like, I just pushed you the ball, dude. push it back. Let's play. And it's like, oh, yeah, I don't, and perhaps I'm thinking too much about this. Maybe I am, but um,
Well,
psychologically,
do they
why,
really want to play, or or do they see it like we're a ringleader and we're trying to get them to do a circus act for us? Oh, push the ball for
right?
us, please. Knock on the wall. But I'm the same way. I go in there, or I'm thinking the same way you are, because I like to go to a place. I like to find a certain spirit that I feel may be there, and just go there and validate and know that they're there, know the
Yeah.
history of the person, maybe leave an offering and just say, um, based off of their birthday, I can go in and find their moon totem and say, here's your moon totem. It's a bear represented here. And, if you killed yourself, I don't even talk about that, just saying. And a lot of the stories that I found that these places are telling are false. They're saying, the person, for example, the story is that her son dropped her off. Well, I can validate through research that she didn't have a son. So your story's fake there. And her kids were in asylums, and then she was in an asylum, and she did hang herself. But I wanted to go there and just say, hey, I'm here for you, and this is a representation, and I want to validate your life and know that I know a little more than some other people out there. And that's just between the spirit and whoever else is there with me.
How beautiful is that, though?
It's awesome. It feels good. And if
Right.
you have these dark places that sell the darkness, I would like to go there and put a little bit of light back into it. So
I I
yeah,
really appreciate that, actually,
yeah.
because when you say darkness, there's a part of me that can't help but wonder, like, what what helped make that a dark area,
Hmm.
you know?
Exactly.
So,
Yep.
I mean, pain and suffering isn't always what creates that. Oh,
Yep.
Victoria, do you have a, I'm sorry.
Basement. Do you have a basement? And more importantly, speaking of dark places, do you have a basement? And more importantly, is there a well in the basement? She was talking about
I
Alfred, I guess.
Oh, yeah, yeah, yeah. And I know exactly what she's talking about because there's tons of those basements with wells in them in this area when I was looking at different houses to buy. So, yes, I do have a basement. Oddly enough, I have two basements that are connected by like a dirt path, a dirt hallway. I don't know how
Crawl
exactly
space.
kinda, except you're not really crawling, but you do have to duck down. Yeah, so the house has been um, added onto throughout the years,
Okay.
and yeah, so when it was expanded, they created another basement, but my basement is all dirt and granite and quartz, which if you're familiar with quartz, then you know that
Hmm.
quartz is like a natural recorder, right?
Hmm.
It records
Yeah.
energy, records a lot. So yeah, so that's pretty neat. It's neat to hear things and feel things in here that you just know is might be not necessarily on a loop, but oh, side note, I'm so sorry. Uh, I host uh, murder mystery dinners.
Oh, nice.
And one of the best, most well attended murder mystery dinner was when we did 1920s in the juice joint.
Oh,
And I'm not saying I go all out, but I'd like to try to really create the ambiance, like the environment. And so I had 1920s music. I found a ton of different singers, and we like vinyl in this house. And I actually have a very nice old record player, one of the crank ones. Um, so we had 1920s music playing in here, and
That's like the opening to every horror movie now. That creepy music.
right, as we're all doing the Charleston, right, and like shit gets real, exactly.
And the
There was
and the record skips.
right, and you're like, what is that? Um, so many sites, people were seeing things, people were hearing things. Uh, my bathroom, not to be too personal, my the house was built before indoor plumbing, so my bathroom used to be a bedroom, and there's a lot of sites in the bathroom. So that night it was crazy. You could hear 1920s music and swing music, and you were seeing stuff in the bathroom.
Wow.
It was crazy, but good time. So yeah, my basement is freaky. I kind of once in a while, it reminds me of the Blair Witch Project. You're looking in the corner, going, "Oh, please don't be staring at the corner." Yeah, but it's a great environment. It's a great vibe overall. Not that bad once you get past that. But yeah. Who else do you have on tonight? We've got Victoria.
Oh, we have Victoria. We have let's see here. Paul Shepard is watching.
Hey, Paul.
Ron Lovett's watching.
Hey.
Nino, Greg Kaz. He's from the Shadow Hunters. He does a show. He does a show called Shadow Hour on Fridays, and then a Metaphysical Crossings on Wednesdays, I believe.
That's kind of neat.
Yeah.
So Shadow Hunters.
Shadow Hunters. Yep, check them out.
I absolutely will, and I feel like such a nerd. I'm so sorry. I love psychology. I love psychology a lot. So if you're familiar with Carl Jung and his work, and he was one of the earliest psychologists, he actually was the first person to coin the phrase of shadow persona. In 1919, Carl Jung was amazing. He truly had a passion for paranormal. And when you think about back in the time, well, even now, you start talking about paranormal and people start kind of like looking around to see who's listening, right? It's like, I believe in ghosts, and being a therapist myself, I tend not to make that too public. Mostly because it's still not, my field alone, people aren't always as open to it. But Carl Jung, at the very, at some of the most earliest stages of psychology, really wanted to explore the paranormal and was fascinated about this and just knew that there was so much more going on. So he had the psychology piece, right, where for a long time, definitely over a century, we were trying to prove that we were an actual research, evidence-based field. And then you have him also saying, but let's also talk about the paranormal. Let's also talk about maybe some grief counseling with our dead grandmother, or something like that. But in 1919, right? Exactly. Yeah. Like now it makes total sense. Break out the Ouija board. I'm joking. No Ouija board. My spirit board.
Well, now they got the Talk to God board out there. Did you see that on Amazon?
I did. I did. And wow.
I thought that was called prayer, but anyway, that's just me.
I think it's all how you market it, right? Like it really, wow, right? Well, that's the old joke, right? When God talks to you, when you talk to God, it's religion. When God talks to you, you're schizophrenic, right? Like, so
exactly
the old joke. So Jung in 1919 started to come up with these different personas, these different archetypes that he was seeing that we all have part of. And that's when he started really identifying the shadow persona. And talking about how it really was our shadow self was what he used to describe the traits or the characteristics of us that we really don't care for. And oftentimes we're not truly aware of these types. So when people start talking about needing to do some shadow work, there is a part of me that I can't help but be like, this is, let me pull my geek card out. My geek card wants to tell you that, that's actually a psychology, Carl Jung reference, for shadow self. And it's amazing how that's really kind of taken off, that people really, it resonates with people, this shadow piece, their shadow identity, and working around that.
What about a doppelganger type of situation?
Do you have a doppelganger? Tell me more about that. How does that make you feel, Dean?
I think we all do, but I know there's a location that we call the lab, and there was one day that everyone was seeing the other person's doppelganger, but I swear, it was in a dark room, pitch black, no windows, and I'm watching my friend Tim on the other side of the room with his cell phone light on his face. He's monkeying around with his headphones. He's doing a ghost box. So then I go, okay, so Tim's there. So I start walking towards the other door, and I run into Tim. And I'm like, who's this? He goes, it's Tim. And I'm like, well, how the hell did you get here when you were on the other side of the room? And that freaked me out. And then all of a sudden, we all started seeing the other people started seeing the other people in the same at the same time frame. So
Wow.
you see us on camera. Like I said, you guys stay close because I don't know who's who now. So you can see on the video camera the four of us moving around like Scooby Doo. We're all like real tight, like this. Because we didn't know.
Fascinating.
I go, I don't know who these other people things are or whatever. I said, you need to stay close so I know.
Have a secret handshake or something. No, so what do you think that was? What do you think that was all about?
Doppelganger. I don't know. Or we were seeing into a future or past or something.
I'm wondering if it was some sort of some sort of
time warp type
parallel kind of universe kind of thing that was bleeding through.
And we've been seeing that before. And I know that there's times where we'll say something and we'll catch a voice capture on a recorder, and then years later we'll say it. So we're almost questioning, was the voice capture us 10 years from?
Wow.
So are we capturing ourselves in another time, or is it actual spirit? So that's why we call it the lab.
That is neat.
Yeah.
I want to check out the lab. I do, truly.
Yeah, we had Greg's team out there last week or something like that.
Yeah.
Yeah, and they were impressed.
I bet.
And Greg says, Sarah, it's awesome to meet you. I'll be in touch as long as Dean lets me. I don't know what that means.
I don't know what that means either, but Greg, I'd love to chat with you. So thanks for.
I'm sure he'll invite you onto his Shadow Hour show.
Oh, sweet. Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Shadow Hour. That's good times. Why not?
Shadow Hour. It's like
Shadow
happy hour.
Right? But
different.
It sounds so much more depressing. So maybe there's more drinking. I don't know. But yeah. Shadow
No
Hour.
drinking.
No
drinking.
No, wouldn't help. No.
So we can't go without saying about the gravestone in the back here, or can't go on further without mentioning. Yeah. So tell the folks what.
So this is my living room, and I have a wonderful partner who loves Stephen King. You would kind of think, like, if you're from Maine, they're like, oh, you must love Stephen King and lobster and blueberries, and that's true for some people. And for my partner, he really loves anything dark in Stephen King. So part of his I don't know even what his personality, I guess, one of his
Fascination.
yes, is that he collects Stephen King movie props. One of the maybe the more fun thing. I mean, I have met Stephen King. He's very lovely. Um, he's funny as hell. Actually, I was able to. I applied for a grant, no, a scholarship called the Barking Foundation Scholarship that him and his wife Tabitha provided for all of, I mean, anyone in any student in the U.S. could apply for it. And I happened to win it, and I'm very grateful for that. And that's what allowed me to finish college because I just didn't have enough money. So I got the chance to meet him. His wife Tabitha is just wonderful. They're really good people, and they haven't forgotten their roots. You know, they're very real. They're very genuine.
Right.
So kind of going back to my partner, he collects Stephen King movie props, and a lot of Stephen King's movies are filmed in Maine. So this particular tombstone in my living room, because who doesn't have a tombstone in your living room, is from the movie The Graveyard Shift. And he also has all sorts of really realistic looking skulls that are from some of the movies. And actually, it's kind of interesting. A friend of mine is making a bust of one of his Pennywise. And hopefully, I really love it if it was the original Pennywise. I mean,
Sure.
nothing against the current one, but Tim Curry, come on. He rocks, right? Come on. So yeah, if you come and visit, and I do have a 12-year-old daughter, so when she has friends over and they enter the house, which is, you know, old anyway and kind of creepy, and then you see skulls, which of course are not genuine, but boy, do they look it. And yeah, tombstones. I can understand why we may not be the ideal place for a slumber party.
So favorite Stephen King movie, I have to ask.
Oh my gosh, my favorite.
And I didn't say book, I said movie.
Yeah, movie. Yeah, yeah. Because I was going to say if it was book, it would be Green Mile. Oh my gosh,
Oh,
that just
yeah.
not rip your heart out.
Yep.
Oddly enough, I'm going to say the original. Well, you know what? I really like the original Shining, but It. I really liked It.
It.
Yeah, yeah. And
There's
you
so
know what?
many of them.
I was also a teenager when the original It was being filmed, so I remember
Okay.
driving by. I remember all the hype, and you know, I think this happened in other towns too, didn't it? That when they made the remake, like here in Maine, there were people dressing up as clowns all the time and everywhere. I do this for Halloween. Outside my door, we have a sewage grate, and I always for Halloween I have a red balloon popping up from it. So you have good
That's
fun.
funny. Oh
You
yeah,
know,
you
that's
gotta.
what we do. You know, they all float down here, you know, like
Victoria says Salem's Lot, and I was thinking that too.
one more
What
time,
was his name?
Salem's
David.
Lot. Oh yeah.
Salem's Lot, yeah. I think it was David Soul was in that. That was an older one. But one of my favorites, Cujo.
Oh
Cujo.
wow.
Yeah, and um, another off the wall one is Needful Things. Actually, Needful Things was a interesting kind of little. Ed Harris was in it, I believe.
Oh, I like Ed Harris. I never
Yeah.
saw that. I remember watching the Tommyknockers.
Yeah.
You know, they actually shut down the Tommyknockers. There's a part that's located in an airport where it's filmed in Maine, and it's filmed less than half an hour from my house. That I remember it made news that, you know, they had to try to work between the different flight schedules. You know, but Tommyknockers, that was like I tell you, when I think about dental hygiene, do you remember watching that? The guy was like
It's
tearing
been
up.
a while.
You have what was his name? Oh gosh, he was in NYPD Blue. Jimmy Smits, was that
Yeah.
his name?
Hmm.
Right. And
Yep.
I think he was in Tommyknockers, and he's in the
I think he
mirror,
was too.
and he
Yeah.
was looking at himself, and he starts pulling out his teeth. My mother never
Yep.
had to say to me twice, "Go and brush your teeth." I flossed. I was like, I do not want my teeth falling out of my mouth. Oh,
Hmm.
yeah.
Exactly. And then
Oh,
you, of course, you mentioned the Shining, which
yes.
I mentioned to you before we came on. Is I've been to the Stanley Hotel. I've
That
been in
is
the room.
amazing. What was that
We
like?
Oh, it was cool. I mean, it goes without saying. So we were down there years ago, and we were there for a couple days. One day longer than we should have because on the first day of spring, it snowed and we got snowed in
Right.
at the
Of
Stanley.
course.
I mean,
Tell me how
how can
creepy
you
that
top
was.
that?
Right?
It
Oh
was
my
very cool.
goodness.
It was very
I
cool.
would love to go to the Stanley Hotel. I really
Yep.
would. I think that'd be so incredibly interesting. And in fact, a friend of Victoria and I, um, have you had Richard Epstep on? Have you had him on yet? He's a wonderful writer. He's written over 20 books, and he really enjoys writing paranormal, and he writes a lot of historical books, and just amazing. But anyway, he lives in Colorado, and
Hmm.
every once in a while, he will. In the past, he's given tours at the Stanley Hotel,
Oh, nice.
and I'm always like, I am going to Colorado. I would love for you to give me a tour. I don't care if I, pee my pants and cry. Like, I want you to give me like that's epic, isn't it?
my
Like,
my aunt and uncle lived out there, and my cousin Jeff. I was talking to him a couple years ago, and he's like, he got a job painting. So he was actually painting the interior of The Shining. So the current paint job
no,
is by his hands, and I'm like this. Well, I need a job. I'll start heading out there.
I don't care what they pay. I'll hang out.
Exactly.
Right, right.
Yeah, I painted the
Wow.
Stanley. Yeah, isn't that cool?
That is really that is cool. That is
Small
cool.
world.
When
But
when you
they have a TV station out there that just plays The Shining back over. It just loops throughout the whole day.
I
Anytime you just turn on the Shining channel and catch it whenever you want, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. Uh,
I'm not sure if that wouldn't drive me to some sort of, here's Johnny. Like, there's only
mhm.
so much you can.
And you run into people doing Ouija board in the hallway there, and we were lucky enough to have a couple of the haunted rooms, and we found somebody that had the Stephen King room. So I said, well, we got 401, so we just switched for about
No
30
way.
minutes. So they let us in their room and vice versa. So we were able to do that, but we didn't really capture anything
Really?
as far as evidence, but I do remember opening the door to one lady who was taking pictures outside the room, and I said, "Here's Johnny," freaked her out. And but there was one episode or one incident where I told Tim, I said, "Let's go to the concert hall," and I and we walked away from it, and then we kind of snuck up on the side, and
Yeah.
then I entered it and I locked the door, and then I ran over to the front door and locked it because it's open all the time. I had to close it, and then I said, "Okay, to run around and find all the any other doors and see if there's anyone in here." So we locked all the doors and we checked all the area, make sure there was nobody in there, and then we set up on the stage and we had recorders and videos going. And Tim said, "If you're here, repeat the sound," and he knocked twice on the stage. No one else. nothing captured except for his recorder that was on the stage. You heard two knockings right after his knocking. That's the only piece of evidence we captured out of there. But we can honestly say there was no one else in there because we secured the building, and there you go. So, and we got video of us both, so to prove that we didn't knock.
That
So
is cool. See,
yeah,
that's
it took a
that's what
lot of work to get two knocks. I gotta say.
I believe it, right? Yeah.
Yeah,
And again, kind of going back to how many investigations do you think they've gone through? You know, when I go to an investigation, I'm always like, oh, this is a fresh place. And I have
yeah,
no doubt they see me going in going, oh God, not somebody else.
yep.
Oh, you know, I don't know. I
That's
can't
the other
help but
thing
to
too.
think about it.
When we went up to the abandoned amusement park, Saint Shawnee Lake Shawnee Amusement Park in
I
West
have
Virginia, North
never
Carolina, or something.
been to an abandoned
Yeah,
amusement park, but that just screams creepy as hell.
yeah. So it's actually if you watch, it's on one of the most terrifying shows. I think Jason Hawes does the first one.
No kidding.
So the day we were there, I went there and just I didn't do any hunting. The rest of the team did, but I was there managing the fire and doing spiritual more than anything.
Mhm.
Again, putting my own piece of my validation there, and so the gentleman who owned the place, said that they have like a crew coming out the next day and they're going to be filming. So I have this little, and you're supposed to bring like an offering, so people leave offerings all the time. So I had this little angel, and I was sitting there in the back, but then I said, no, she doesn't belong there. So I have my camera going like this, saying, okay, tell me where you need to go. Kind of like a tarot
Mm,
reading, just kind of get that sense.
yeah.
Okay. And I went around by the swing ride, and then there was a picnic table there, and I set it right in the middle. I'm like, okay, she feels comfortable here. And on the show, the next day when they were filming, Laura was watching it, and she's like, "Date, your angel is on TV." So the little offering angel that I left there was actually on TV for that show the next day.
How neat is that?
I was like, "There you go, there you go. She made it."
Right? Oh
Yeah,
my
yeah.
goodness.
But
You know,
it was cool
yeah.
because it was cool because they had a fire pit, and I just lost a dear friend who died in my arms in 2019, and
Oh,
then my brother, and then so I would split wood. The friend Mike would split wood, and then my brother had some wood from Missouri that he brought back for his fireplace. So I went and gathered all this wood. So I had one piece of wood from my brother, one piece of wood that Mike split, and one piece of wood that I split, and I put it all together in this fire out there as a spiritual offering to the place. So
that is beautiful.
yeah,
That is beautiful. Truly. And that,
yeah,
to me, that just, I can see and I can like, you can feel that
mm-hmm,
togetherness, right?
mm-hmm, yep,
Um,
yeah,
and that's just a beautiful thing. I guess there's a part of me that just is so not impressed. I'm just touched. And then I wish more people kind of thought along those lines, perhaps, that
okay. I'm trying every little bit.
you really are.
shows like this where I could talk about it
Mm,
and just say, I had a psychic not that long ago, and they're like, well, someone asked her, well, how do you restore the place? And she didn't really have an answer. And I said, just keep bringing light. Just keep bringing light into it. The more people that bring in light into the dark,
yeah.
you're gonna beat it. You know.
I agree.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely. And that I think it's very empowering that that's
Mm-hmm.
the piece is that what do you bring into it, right? So
Yeah.
it's not expecting the world to change for us or expecting someone to do something to benefit us. It's what are you going to do? So
Exactly.
how are you going to bring that light in? How are you going to make that change? How are you
Right.
going to just make a little adjustment that's going to benefit? on so many levels, right? Which, tell me if this isn't a smooth transition when we talk about the tarot card, right? Temperance, and we're talking about
Oh,
balance.
let me grab it.
Oh, look at that. Look at that. I swear we didn't stage this, but it's good, isn't it? Oh, it's
Yeah, look
so
at
good.
he's balancing the whatever, maybe the universe is
There you go.
or
Isn't he?
juggling maybe.
That is a strong chin.
You
I
like
I
that?
defy anyone to tell me that is not a almost got a Hasselhoff look. I'm not gonna lie. A little bit of the Hoff going on, you
That's what.
know. But when I think about temperance, but we're often talking about balance, or if it's the reverse, there's an imbalance or something's not quite right. But when I often think about temperance, I'm thinking our value system. So instead of something being in our life not right, it's kind of gives us a moment to kind of step back and do a moral inventory, if that makes sense, about what truly is important to us. And so if we're saying that, if you were to ask me right now, so Sarah Jane, what's your values? What's important to you? And I'm like, oh yeah, by all means, family's important to me, work's important to me, safety's important to me. Then I would expect at some point we start talking about, so if they're important to you, how do you honor that? How do you show that those values are important to you? How do you protect those values? I like to think that I'm a voluptuous woman. I'm not a size 6, and probably wasn't even when I was at the age of 6. I've always been a voluptuous person. So if I was to say to you that one of my values is really good physical health, and you start asking me like, what do you do to honor that? Am I taking time to focus on my physical health, spiritual health, emotional health? Like, what am I doing for myself? And if I'm not making the time to do that, if I'm not protecting that particular value by making sure that I'm not welcoming people who might be wanting me to engage in things that aren't in my best interest physically and spiritually and mentally, then am I really honoring that value? So when I think about temperance, that's what I think about, is that it's asking us almost like the hermit in a way, to kind of step back and look at our value system, and is it out of whack? When things aren't balanced, I don't often think of it as a physical imbalance. It's more of a mental health or a spiritual imbalance. That's something that might be going on that perhaps needs our attention, might be taking away from things that we really value, or we really want to put our energy in. And how do we make that not so much okay, but how do we have this piece of acceptance around that? Or does that mean that we step back and we see that there's an imbalance, and now we've got this aha moment that this is when I need to make some changes, because I'm talking a talk around my values, but I'm not walking the walk, right? And so now let's start shifting that. And what do I need to do for that? So when I see that card, that's to me one of those aha moments that I need to kind of step back and look at.
Well, it's funny when you're talking about balancing, and I was always like a clean the room kid. Like everything had to be like organized and stuff. And today you wouldn't notice that at all, because my house is completely cluttered. And the opposite of that is when I'm outside, or if I'm over at a friend's house or helping somebody or at work or anywhere else, I'm more organized outside of the home. So that's where the balance is. So if I come home and declutter or get everything organized, maybe I won't have that same balance anymore outside of it.
I
Don't
love
read
that.
into that. I know you're gonna like start to
Nope. So tell me about your relationship
exactly.
with your mother. Go ahead, Dean. Right?
I
No,
love
no.
my mommy.
Of course you do. Right. No, no, not at all. But I do I think that's absolutely like spot on. I think it brings a point because I always joke with my partner. I'm like, let me just have one area that that is a total chaos. And for me, that's a closet. Two areas because I have a kitchen. I think we all have a drunk drawer, right? Like I think I have junk three drawers, right? Just all three in the kitchen. Don't look at them. Don't ask questions. Don't judge. But the rest of the kitchen looks pretty good. Dishes are clean. They're put
The
away.
junk drawer is back to the needful things. It's filled with needful things that you may have to use at
At
another
some
10 years from now.
when the zombie apocalypse hits, all right, I'm gonna be prepared, right? Exactly, exactly. So I think we all need that kind of balance, you know.
Yeah.
My goodness, what was it? Mark Twain that once said that something about there's nothing more annoying than a perfect example, and I like totally. I remember hearing that as a teenager, and I'm like, spot on. So anybody who seems like life is too good, too perfect, I'm just like, ooh.
Speaking of Mark Twain, I've been to his hometown. I actually was by the house that he was born in, I guess.
Shut the front door.
Yeah, it's
Really?
I think it's called Florida, Missouri, and we would go down there for family reunions, and it was just down the street. It was just out, it's west of Hannibal, and that's Hannibal, of course, is Tom Sawyerville and everything. But
Wow.
yeah, he was born out in Florida, Missouri. And then
I
they showed there's like a plaque out there with a little house there, and it's like, I mean, it's like a 5 house town. I mean, probably
that
with
is
a
so neat.
yeah.
You know, and I have to say that there's like the little girl in me uh who growing up, we were very, very poor, um, very poor, and we lived near a fishing community. But I think about how just being that little girl, and there was a ton of us kids because my parents clearly didn't know when to leave each other alone. But there wasn't enough bedrooms, and
Mhm.
but I just remember wanting so much to like be a writer, or I'd lose myself in these stories, like Wrinkle in Time, C.S. Lewis, all the Narnia books, and how fascinating it was. And so to
Right.
hear this, right, being a five house town, and I can relate to that. Where I grew up, um, we had one store, and that store was owned by um, the principal, who was also the eighth grade teacher, who was also the fire chief, who was also the head selectman of the town, right? And it was so like, yeah, it was so incredibly tiny that I think if I had been deviant at all, um, my family would have known it before the sentence came out of my mouth, right? Like it was so incredibly tiny. So to think about Mark Twain being in this tiny little town, this young boy who had such an imagination, such creativity, and loved reading and loved writing in a time where it, to be honest, like reading and writing in a rural area where work was really like hard work, reading and writing was a nice thing to have, but it wasn't
Hmm.
as much of a focus, right? Like
Right.
it was that, what yeah, that physical worth, I suppose. um
In a day without cell phones or computers.
Right? I'm just blown away. And that little boy turned into such an inspiration, and people quote him. And Wow, how neat is that?
Yeah.
Right down the road. Right down the road.
Yeah, from the family reunion where I
Right?
went. It wasn't
I,
too far. And
you know,
Hannibal's cool. Hannibal's cool too. They have a nice ghost tour out there, and they had a steampunk fest one year or a couple years in a row. That was fun. So yeah, and I
wow,
actually met, and I actually no, it wasn't Hannibal. It's Burlington, Missouri. I met Larry the Cable Guy.
get her done. Okay.
Get her done. Get her done.
Get her done. Which, you know what? I don't care. I would pay mad money to see Larry the Cable Guy in steampunk.
It's not that far of a difference. He just,
Just saying.
what do you
Take
call
off the
those?
hat, put on one of those, top hats with the goggles, and I think he could rock it out,
Yeah.
flannel and all. I don't care. I'd go to that. I'd go
Kilt.
to
Kilt.
that. I'm not gonna lie. I might have a fetish with kilts, men in kilts. Just saying.
Is
Victoria,
Melissa? Is
no.
Melissa? Is Melissa on? She's
Oh, does
she
Melissa
was.
also enjoy a good kilt? Yeah.
Yes, she does. She was with us. It was Melissa, Laura, Mike, and me went, and yeah, the men in kilts got her attention
You know what?
very quickly.
I think men and kilts can get anyone's attention. So it's hello. Yeah, exactly. Oh my goodness.
She'll
So
listen to the
Dean,
show. Yeah,
seriously. Oh, what's Victoria
Victoria.
saying?
Kilts.
See, yeah, see, yowzas, my goodness. The only thing that kind of disappoints me is that when I've gone over to the UK and Ireland and Scotland, and boy, some of those guys have better legs than I do, and I do have leg envy. I really, really do.
Wow.
You're just like, what the heck? Like your accent is sexy as hell, and you have better legs. Like, check please, I'm done. Like, whatever. What are you gonna do? But again, paranormal and ghost hunting in the UK is
Wow. Right?
awesome. Right?
Castles.
Yeah.
I might have an opportunity to go next year, but we'll see.
Where are you gonna go?
London area, I guess.
Yeah. Wouldn't the Tower of London be cool? I love.
I just want to meet. I just want to meet Yvette Fielding from Most Haunted.
Well, you know what? You
is there any
hold on to that
astral
dream.
beings? That was like one of the first shows we watched. It was awesome,
Oh,
and they're back and they're still going on. It's great. Gotta
right.
love it. Gotta love it. Gotta love their energy.
Right. Exactly. I just enjoy watching anything that's mostly UK. Not that I don't enjoy other parts of Europe, but I just it's interesting when we think about, again, it's psychology, right? And we're talking about like communities and cultures, that when we think about America and the different paranormal attitudes we have, then oh my goodness, I'm sorry because I'm jumping everywhere, but I swear I'm not manic yet. That the University of Edinburgh offers this really wonderful class for free online. You can do it, and I've had a couple of friends who've participated and they enjoy it, and it's like parapsychology. I'll have to send you the link and you can post it. It's really neat, and they only accept so many people per course. But I've always thought that was fascinating. Actually, if I was going to share a secret with you and everyone else who's watching, I would love to get a doctorate degree in psychology, but I would really like to focus on individuals who, and this is going to sound kind of off, but they're out there. I've met them and I believe them, and my peers do too, that there are people out there who have phobias, and maybe not
yeah.
even phobias, but they have reoccurring memories
Hmm.
of past lives, right?
I see it more
So,
and more too.
right? So
Yeah.
when I see something like that, they're coming to see me because it's interrupting their current life. They've
Hmm.
got this PTSD that, as a clinician, there's nothing that says, previous life PTSD. I suppose you could put it under chronic, but still, this PTSD piece, right? And
Right.
so when you think about current psychology, what do we do? Well, we're like, okay, this could be a thought disorder, this could be a mood. We're looking at it from current stance, right? And not only are we looking at different behavioral therapies like cognitive behavioral therapy or EMDR, right? Exposure therapy, we are also thinking about medication. So we start thinking that we need to medicate. I do not prescribe, but we start thinking along those lines that the people need to have a combination of both. I would love to get a doctorate focused on people who have previous life trauma. So
Hmm.
previous life PTSD, which is not a thing, but I'm you heard it here first. Anyway, and then to truly use some of these trauma informed, trauma focused models like EMDR or trauma focused CBT on these individuals to see if it helps them have some sort of progress with their post life trauma in today's world. And does it improve their life domains today? Does it help them with their coping skills today, where they don't need medication? Perhaps. And I'm not saying I'm not anti-medication. I'm not anti-medication. I can't help the psychologist and then the paranormal lover in me can't help but wonder, are we applying skills or models that may not be the most helpful or the most beneficial, that if they truly are trauma based, maybe we should be using a trauma based model on that. Um, but you know what? Gosh darn it, in America, when I bring that up to any university, they kind of, you almost can hear this click and you're like, hello? Hello? Are you still there? Hello?
Yeah, it's
Uh, but Europe
you're
is
thinking
so much.
outside the box is what you're doing. Is
Well, shame on me, right?
Yeah,
My
how dare
bad. Let
you?
me let me go back to my hovel. But
Yeah.
but in Europe, they seem so much more open to that. They seem to actually want to. They welcome conversations like that in the UK, and yeah, I find that fascinating. And I hope at some point we can create a welcoming culture, especially psychology and just education in general, that we can actually see this as a real respectful
Hmm.
field as opposed to more of a, yeah.
So let me ask you that, because we have some of our research. We find that some of the children that have autism or Asperger's has a tendency to have ability to see spirit better than some others, especially at a younger age. I don't know if they lose the ability or not. How do you how do you view that? Is that something that, I mean, can you speak on that behalf as far as people with
Well,
autism or on the spectrum
I
compared to
would,
somebody else?
I think that for, okay, instead of talking as a therapist, I'll talk as a paranormal, if that's a lover,
Okay,
if that's okay. So the
perfect. Yeah.
paranormal lover in me finds that very interesting and maybe not all that surprising when
Hmm.
we think about people on the spectrum. One of the one of their strengths, and maybe people don't see this as a strength, but I can see it as a strength, is that because they have a harder time, what's the word I'm looking for? Maybe not really recognizing, but they don't, they have less of the outside interruptions when it comes to, like, they're not spending a whole lot of time or energy focused on trying to translate the hidden messages that people are throwing at us at all times, right? We have
Okay.
unspoken messages. We have the environmental piece that we're trying to translate. Um, I can see how they might be able to be in contact or see through or focus more on right now, right here, what's going on, and not have to be worried about someone thinking that they're crazy or how that's going to present, because they are focused in the moment, and some of the social cues that other people might pick up, like what, oh, okay, that doesn't register with them. That's like, hey, this is what I'm seeing. It is so beautifully clear.
Mm-hmm.
And maybe you can even say concrete, that there's a part of me that's not all that surprised, you know. And as children, young
Mm-hmm.
children, we see that, right? Like they
Right.
don't they haven't been exposed that this is something that they shouldn't talk about, or that people might think that they're lying or not seeing what they're seeing, right? That's all their imagination. And until they get older, and then they start being exposed to more of these unspoken messages or spoken messages, and we don't talk about that, or you're crazy, or oh, that's just your imaginary friend, right? That they start having this self-doubt in
Well,
themselves.
I know this one gentleman. He's in his late 20s now, and he explained how he would see them, talk to him, and he also had the ability to shoo them away at any given moment. So he learned that ability, and then when they started medicating him, that's when everything went away for him. So the
And then,
medication took that ability to see them anymore. So
I've actually heard that a few different times. Actually,
yeah.
I many years ago had worked with an individual who finally were able to find a medication regimen that worked.
Hmm.
And then the individual asked, and it was actually quite um, bittersweet. The individual had asked the med provider if there was any way to tweak that, because um, the majority of their friends were
I was
spirit
just gonna
friends,
say, yeah, they
and
were missing them.
they felt very, very lonely. And because of
Hmm.
years, and you know, this person was middle aged, and so by the time they were in their, by the time they were at this age, um, there was so much judgment and so many people pushing this person away, that they
Yeah.
really truly were very lonely, you know. And so they were like, the only real friends I have that listen to me, that I can talk to, are my spiritual friends, my spirit friends, because they're,
Yeah.
you know, I don't want the ones that tell me to, you know, do things that I don't want to do, but I really would like to have a couple of my friends back. And I remember hearing that, and just like there was a part of me that's just like, oh, you know. And it just, yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
I think sometimes we don't really think about that connection, and that for people who do see and hear, that they truly, some people are truly creating a connection and a relationship, you know, have you, with these spirits. And when they no longer have them, that is a loss, that's a grief, you know.
Yeah. So back to what we were talking about before with bringing light into dark places.
Mm.
Victoria did mention it. She's saying that she sees more people saying things like we're saying, other than the jump scare, and that she hopes that the jump scare era is kind of coming to a closure. So
I'm right there with you, Victoria. I hope it's coming to an end too, because that whole, that, I kind of feel like in the paranormal community, we're growing up, right? So we went through that like preteen stage where we just wanted to, oh, you know. You remember? Okay, maybe guys don't do this, but I'm telling you, for some reason, the first girl that falls asleep, you know, you put your fingers in warm water and see if she'll like have an accident or something really crazy and bizarre like that, right? So all of that like screams pre-high school, right? And that's
hmm
kind of the whole jump scare in my eyes when I see it, step back, of course, and see it. that we did a whole that. And I think now we're getting into like early adulthood where we want to start building connections. We're beginning to understand ourselves better, right? So
Hmm.
when we're scared, how much of that is really how much of that's onus on us, right? So
Right.
I'm meeting more and more people that I'm not saying they want a long lasting relationship, but there is this desire to build an understanding, some respect, this connection.
Hmm.
And I'm thinking, again, that some of the things that you've shared with us for the past hour and a half, the things that you do out of respect, right?
Right.
That, that you wouldn't see somebody maybe 10, 15 years ago, doing that. But that's part of how you honor that relationship or honor that life,
Hmm.
that essence, right? That that connection. I do see that we're having more people who want that, who want to understand that. Um, Kind of again going back to psychology, right? When I'm thinking about these things, I'm feeling empathy. Um, I'm feeling compassion for these spirits. They're not a source of entertainment for me. They're not a source of entertainment,
Right.
and it does. I feel sad on behalf. Not sad. I feel frustrated, maybe even pissy on behalf of these spirits when I see or hear people who have used them as a way of entertainment or has used them for attention seeking, and it's man, I was
Yeah.
married, Dean. I remember those times. I don't I don't want to be in that again, right?
Right.
Oh crap. Oh
Yeah.
man, I have had such a good time with you, Dean. Thank you so much
Yeah.
for inviting me on. And I'm
Look,
sorry that Nick couldn't join us.
and his son has autism, so it would have been a nice conversation with him on board. So maybe we could do this again when he's up and running. Yeah,
I
would
would
love
love
for you
that.
to meet Nick, and his knowledge and his mind and his expertise on stuff is you, blows my mind all the time. So yeah,
Yeah.
I wish he would have been here too. Um, and I know with the different places that we visit, hopefully it is changing. Um, and somebody told me too, because I was like, the Velisca axe murder house. I mean, it's advertised as an axe murder house, and I'm like, why are you going there? And then this one lady, finally made it clear to me, say, well, just go there and remember the good times that they had instead of going there to do the axe murder part. I'm like, well, that makes perfect sense, and I know
You say
when,
that, and automatically my mind went to whose good times are we honoring? Because,
yeah.
sorry, I'm just like,
There was one house we did down a couple hours south of us here, and the boy that lived in the house who just moved out, his birthday was happening. So I left some papers on the floor with some crayons, and if the spirits wanted to wish him a happy birthday, they could. And then Laura and I left, and we would go for a walk and see if anything happened on the return, something like that. It's not where you're forcing them to, you know,
no, you're presenting an opportunity, though, which
yeah,
is
exactly,
beautiful.
exactly.
Beautiful. What a
And
great
then
way to honor that life.
And then Victoria says, "This is fascinating conversation. It's so refreshing to hear the two of you talk about the compassion of the paranormal." There you go.
Well, thank you, Victoria. And I miss you, Victoria. She's
We're
great.
all we're all coming down to Texas.
That's right. Maybe not this summer.
No, she's coming up to you at this
That's
summer.
right. She's going to come up to Maine, which will be
It's in
great.
it's in writing, so you know what she's
That's
got to.
right. So,
Got to
Dean, you got to come up too.
say. I'm telling you, man, I'd love to see
Okay?
Maine. That's one place that I haven't been to that side of the world on that east coast
You
there. And
know, not to sweeten the pot any, but I'm only a 4 hour drive from Salem. We go to Salem a lot.
there you go.
Yeah, just saying. Just saying.
There you go.
Yeah,
All right.
this has
Well,
been great.
thank you, Sarah Jane, and all the people that showed up, and yeah, quite a few more people joined. So that's nice. Thanks for hanging out with us, and we'll close
Thanks,
the show.
guys.
another episode of Paranormal Pickers.
Wonderful.
Hopefully, next week we'll have. I think we got 2 more to do for season 2 here, and then I need to take a break.
Absolutely. Well
I'm doing
earned.
my work and I'm doing all Nick's work. So
Happy holidays, everybody. Thank you.
happy holidays. Thank you.
Oh, hey. Wow. Oh, hey everyone, it's Dean from Paranormal Pickers. Oh, I got the preview for the next episode. Oh, yeah. Here, take a peek. Oh. Alright, so I got extra batteries here. So, again, here she is. My offering, Ghost Head Soup 2019 at the abandoned amusement park.